Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Out here clearly once again sitting on the boat, not doing any fishing right now in this video, so we're going to break down a little bit of what I've been doing here at stage 6 on the James River in Virginia. So let's get right into it, guys. I'm going to show you guys some rods that I'm using, some of the baits, and talk a little bit about how my first day went, because I'm in between right now, kind of on my off day between day 1 and day 2 for Group B. I'm in Group B this week, so we're going to jump right into it, kind of go over what I did in the first day of the tournament, how I progressed throughout the day, how I got some bites, and then I'm going to kind of talk to you guys about how I located some fish in practice as well. But yeah, guys, follow along with the video, and hopefully you enjoy today's content. And I'm going to also have some fishing content from the first day of the tournament as well, so guys, look forward to seeing that on the channel. It's going to be some pretty cool fish catches. Maybe going to be looking down on my forward-facing sonar, but guys, it's just habitual at this point. I'm actually not using it to catch any of my fish here this week. I used it to find some fish, but the first day of the tournament, I did not catch anything really off of it. So maybe it's a little bit of a refresher for some of you guys that want to see some old school bassing. All right, guys, let's get right into it. I'm going to briefly go over practice. I don't want to make this video real long-winded. I just kind of want to give you guys a overview of kind of my thought process in the beginning of practice, and I'll just kind of give you guys a generalization of the James River and sort of the conditions that were dealt, and how things are going. So first things first, we're here on the James, and it is in June, you know, middle of June. It's hot, extremely hot. You know, all week long our temperatures were in the lows, in the nights were like in the 70s. A couple nights got down into the mid 60s, but for the most part 70, and then the daytime highs are 90 to like honestly 100 degrees. So the conditions to go fishing were, in practice, excruciating. In the tournament, excruciating. It's been very, very, very hot, uncomfortable pretty much every day I've been out. You know, it's just one of those tournaments where you've got to just kind of, there's a lot of mental willpower that goes into to finding those fish, and then when it comes to the tournament, staying focused, staying in tune with everything is just that much more difficult because of the heat. So water temps are very, very hot. You know, this is a very tidally influenced fishery, so you get a lot of inflowing water and outflowing water with the tide swings of the ocean, thus kind of mixing a lot of that water. So what happens is when that surface temperature heats up from the sun, that tide goes out, tide comes in, it mixes all that water, and so these systems, you know, there's a lot of shallow water, so stuff warms up like that, and you get that water mixing. So the water temperatures are ranging anywhere from like the upper 80s up to 92 degrees. Which is just absolutely insane. You think 92-degree water, you're not going to catch a bass, you know, at the very least catch a bunch of bass like we need to do here in the Bass Pro Tour. You know, definitely is not the case this week. You know, I went out there in practice, and I definitely didn't have like a great practice. It was a little bit more of a challenge for me. On the second day, I had some small little things that were kind of tweaks that I needed to work out. I had some weird thing go on with my motor. It was not a big deal. It was something small, but it just kind of, I had to take it to the service yard. Joe with Mercury didn't get there until middle of the day, or towards the afternoon, and so I kind of lost some time there. But the first day of practice, I was running around. I was trying to locate areas where I felt like congregations of bass would get during the tide changes. So basically with the tide changes, you get current, and current creates seams, creates pockets, creates little areas where fish will group up, especially towards a low tide, because what happens on a low tide on a body of water like the James, where you get a 3 to 4 foot tide swing, is all that water that was once up in those arrowhead reeds, up in those lay down trees, up in those docks, lily pads, you name it. Those fish no longer have very much water on that stuff to hang out. So what that does is it takes all those fish that have all that room to hide, and it forces them out into stuff that's a little bit more accessible. And typically on a low tide, there's just less cover in the water in general, which in turn makes it a little bit easier to break down. So I was trying to look for those little bit more like holding areas, you know, where I felt like I could find groups of fish, because in this deal it's every fish count. You're trying to catch as many as you can as quick as you can. So I was looking where there were big flats, where you had ditches that run off these flats, you know, because when a flat gets less water on it, there's, you know, they can't go anywhere. They have to find that next deep water. So I was looking for those pinch points where those wads of fish would get. I noticed a lot of the fish I was catching, I started catching them pretty good. I found a few areas like that. I caught a lot of them on the same setup you guys saw me throw over the Chowan River. Just a drop shot, you know, and same bait, you know, that MM3 Robo, guys. This is such a killer bait for this tidal water. It just, whether the water's stained, clear, tannic, I don't think it really matters. That Robo's just dynamite, you know. And this is actually a color worm that I grew up fishing on the California Delta, which is also a tidal body of water. So that caught definitely a lot of fish for me in practice. Not a ton of scoreable fish, but it kind of gave me some clues. And throwing that guy on this Wheeler Select, the new Select series, and this is a 7'1" medium action rod. This is a great spinning rod. This is the only spinning rod in the Select series, but man, it's really versatile. I really like it for this drop shot. It's got a fast action. You get to hook the fish really good, even when you're throwing like a Texas rig style drop shot like that with that rebarb style hook. Very standard setup, you know, 10-pound braid, 10-pound leader, because we're fishing around a little bit more like, you know, barnacle-y stuff, a little bit tougher cover and stuff like that. 1/4 ounce weight, nothing fancy there, but that got a lot of bites for me in practice. Some scoreable bites, located some fish in those little like pinch points on a lower tide. You know, the other thing that I started to notice, I actually started off throwing this in practice, and I noticed that I was getting a lot of bites on it, you know, searching for these fish. I would throw this around little inlets of where creeks kind of flowed into the larger creeks, and I was looking, like I said, for these spots where these fish would congregate, and that was just your standard vibrating jig. And I opted for a white, like more bait fish color, because I noticed there was a lot of bait fish flickering, there's a lot of stuff in the water, bait fish swimming around, just all kinds of life. And there's a lot of crabs and those blue crabs, and honestly there are a lot of lighter color, a lot of lighter hues to those crabs. So that lighter color chatterbait seemed like it got quite a few bites for me in practice. But once again, you know, I'm not going to break down practice like throughout the entire thing, but it seemed like as an overall consensus I could get bit on the chatterbait, I could slow down with the worm, I could slow down with, you know, regardless of whether it was a drop shot or like this Texas rig here with just your, you know, standard old school like curly tail worm. I could get a few bites when I slowed down. You know, these things weren't like smashing them. I was getting some bites on them, getting some scoreable bites. You know, I caught fish around some hardcover on this stuff as well. But to be completely honest with you guys, I didn't have all that great of a practice if you're looking at it from a standpoint of how the weights are showing in this tournament. So I really was going into this event with very little information as far as what I felt like I could go do. I didn't really feel like I had developed a pattern. I felt like I maybe had found a few areas that were holding some fish. Like I said, I was catching a lot of non-scoreable fish, and I was a little worried about that. You know, I knew I was going to have to weed through, you know, non-scoreables. At least I thought so. So anyway, come tournament. Oh, here's another guy actually. You know what? I'm going to share this with you as well. This was another tool that I used in some of those areas. I've grown to really like this bait a lot for this type of fishing. You know, I like this jerk bait. This is the Duckett BD79. It's a little bit more compact size, so with the every fish counts, you know, I mean, it's just a little morsel for like 1.5 pounds, all the way up to however big, you know, that's swimming down there will eat this thing. Looks like a little bait fish. This color is really good, kind of like an American shad looking color. But what I like about this bait is when I hit it, it'll get down there and dive and dart, but when I hit it real hard, it'll almost roll and blow out, which you might think, oh, that's not a good thing. And I'm talking like when you really hit this bait. But what that allows me to do is it allows me to get this bait up there dirt shallow, 1 foot, 2 feet of water, and hit that bait super hard and actually get it to prevent it from diving. It'll roll it back up shallow, and it'll keep that bait up in the strike zone even when the water's really, really, really shallow. So I can get this bait up there in 1 foot, 2 feet of water and hit it really hard after I've started working it to kind of get it back up in the strike zone, because the jerk bait works best when it's kind of mid water column. You know, I don't really typically catch a lot of fish on this guy when it's dredging bottom like you might want with a crankbait. So very neat bait. allows you to fish it very shallow, but if you're a little bit more subtle with your twitches, like you might normally do with any other jerkbait, this guy's just going to do your typical jerkbait action. But you know, a lot of jerkbaits are just going to keep trying to dive and get down there, and you know, you can definitely blow out other jerkbaits, but it seems like this one here, like if I'm really aggressive with it, I can get it to really, like, I can control what this bait does, I guess is what I'm saying, and I can really feel like I'm getting to this bait productively through shallower water than I can get most jerkbaits. Found some key fish with this, found a couple of key spots with that as well. You know, and throwing that on the Select series as well. I really like the Select series. It's a good rod. You know, they're really sensitive. Jacob did a great job designing the Select series rods. If you guys, you know, have tried his original series, you're gonna really like the Select series. They're just a little bit more refined, I think. You know, the price point, you know, you can see, you know, you might expect that, but they definitely perform really well. So anyway, we're gonna get into the tournament then. So the first day of the tournament, I get out there, this was yesterday, get out there, I start on one of these spots, and I kind of knew the tide was a little bit too high, but I was like, all right, I'm gonna start on these points. There were a couple points where there was some current coming around them, and on a lower tide, it seemed like there were some fish that were congregating on them. I found those in practice. So I get out there, I'm working these points, didn't get any bites, you know, right off the rip. I'm working around, and I pick up my vibrating jig, and I throw it out there, and I get a bite, and I lose it. The first bite I had of all day was a scoreable, and I lost it. So I ended up having a really pretty slow first period. I ended up going into one area where I caught some fish, and I caught a couple scoreables in there, and I caught one of them just kind of going down the bank, you know, just kind of paralleling some arrowhead reeds, and you know, it's like a mud flat. And there's some arrowheads in there, and I caught a decent one, scoreable doing that, and then I caught another scoreable like kind of near where I found fish in practice. Then I caught another one where I found some fish in practice, and I was sitting on those 3 fish after the first period. Second period rolls around. Beginning of the period was a struggle. It was, you know, another 30-40 minutes, I believe, of kind of a struggle. And I go move areas, and then I come back to that area where I had caught those 3, and for some reason, you know, one of the biggest things in this sport that's always kind of a challenge, and it doesn't matter if you're fishing at the level that I'm at or the level that, you know, local level or anything in between, fishing in the moment, fishing what's in front of you rather than trying to run history is always a challenge. And yesterday I decided for some reason that I was just going to keep working my chatterbait down the bank. And this area, it was a lower tide, the water was out of this big marsh, and I started just whacking them on this chatterbait, working down the edge of this mud where these arrowhead reeds were, and there were some little clumps of whatever grass grows down there on the bottom of those marshes, and all those fish that were up in that marsh during a high tide had sucked out on those edges of that little channel I was in during a low tide, and I went to smoking them and had a really good second period and had way more bites, way more scoreable bites than I had done all practice long, and I was just very, very, very happy with my decision to just kind of fish the moment. You know, guys, this vibrating jig is nothing fancy. You know, everybody that has bass fished for the last 5-6 years knows about the jackhammer chatterbait. It's probably the best one on the market. But I've been throwing it a lot this year, specifically on this rod. This is my 7'3" medium heavy Pro Series rod, and it's phenomenal for this vibrating jig. I really like the 7'3", you know, especially for getting around those tighter little areas. It allows me to make nice little roll casts, accurate casts. It's got a soft enough tip that when they eat it pretty close to the boat, you seldomly lose fish. You know, sometimes, a couple times yesterday, I got caught in weird positions, and I did have a couple come off, but it's really good at landing the fish. Really grown to love this rod. Nice and light, nice and sensitive, has the right action. And you know, guys, that did all the damage. I mean, I'm gonna keep it that simple. You know, that second period, I kind of clicked. I kind of learned something. So tomorrow, I'm gonna have to figure out something to do during a high tide. You know, that's gonna be the key. If I can figure out a bite during the high tide and utilize what I found yesterday for the low tide, I feel like I can put together a nice day that's going to look like what I need it to on paper in order to make it to the top 10. Right now, sitting in 17th place, you know, not really that far out of it when it comes to it. You know, I think I'm 11 pounds, 11 ounces out, you know, which it can happen like that, you know, really, really quick, like 4 or 5 fish in like 15 minutes type of thing, which is totally doable on the right little spots at the right timing. So the key is going to be to fish just open. I'm going to definitely start on an area that I'd never even practiced on. I'm going to start in an area that I've never casted on. I might start throwing baits I haven't thrown. I'm just going to go fishing tomorrow morning and allow things to kind of materialize and not force this bite too early, because that's something that could mess me up. Get in this area too early and try to make this work. The key with the tidal fishery is it's all about timing. I can't emphasize that enough. It's all about timing, and you have to be very in tune with those times, or else you'll fish stuff too early, fish stuff too late, and you've got to make sure you're aware of those times and you don't try to push it too quick. So guys, that was really key. One more thing I'm going to leave you guys off with here before we wrap up today's video. I want to kind of show you guys a little sneak peek of something that's coming out from Duckett Fishing. Obviously, you guys have seen my Pro Series of rods. Like I said, I was catching them all on that vibrating jig yesterday on that Pro Series 7.3 medium heavy. If you guys haven't checked those out, I highly recommend it. They're not an overly priced rod, and they're really, really, really good quality. Nice cork grips. But something else I've been working on that I'm really excited about, you guys can see here it's on a vibrating jig. I'm not going to show you too much of it, but we did not design it for a vibrating jig. Let me just put it that way. It's a pintail style bait. Might be really, really good with that guy right up there. It's designed for that. It's designed to be thrown on a spinning rod. We have a whole system coming out. It's not one part, it's two parts. So this is just one of the two parts on this. And you guys be on the lookout for it at the beginning of July. It's supposed to come out early July, and very, very excited to have been able to be a part of this design with Duckett Fishing and Duckett Baits. And I think it's going to be a big time fish catcher, not just for me, but for a bunch of you guys out there that like to use your forward facing sonar. And if you don't, guys, it's really good on that vibrating jig as well. So I'm going to leave it right there. Appreciate you guys watching today's video. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It's really easy to do, and I appreciate everybody that already is a subscriber. We're trying to build this subscriber base, and let me know, guys. Let me know what you want to see on the channel. We're trying to do some tournament videos with my GoPro in the back. We're going to get another mount up here, so maybe not for this year, but for next year, things are going to be getting a little bit more progressive with the channel. We're hopefully going to be getting a little bit better content for you guys. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to let you guys go. But like I said, if you haven't already, subscribe. And if you enjoyed, listening to me rant today just about kind of my thought process and breakdown of the James River here for stage 6, go ahead and like the video. I'll catch you guys later.